fan on. I always have the fan on though. Nice. I'm seeing new people. Is it that you're hearing it? It's like, yeah. Hi, good night to the new folks.
If the
Awesome.
fan on rotates, I think when it rotates on the
I always have
speaker,
on though. Always is. I guess when it comes around, I can put on my
yeah,
headphones.
when it comes around. But yeah, I understand. It's not terrible though.
Okay. All right. Maybe I could put it a little further away, but no, this room is very cluttered. Yes. Okay. So, ladies, welcome. I'm seeing new ladies, so that always makes me excited. Excited to share information with the new ladies. And you can also invite your friends. It's not too late to do it now, actually. Before I get into it, you can invite someone to come on. I don't know if anybody was on last week and you didn't get an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment, or nobody asked anything. I did go through a bit of the sex, right? Now let me clarify what we're talking about. We're not just talking about sex just in a broad way, right? A couple of weeks ago, we did a couple of sessions about the top 5 things that cause marriages to end, or people to separate, or cause conflict in a marriage. And then out of that, we splitting up the 5 things and doing sessions about each one. And these sessions now, because sex was one of those things that cause conflict in a marriage and even causes divorce. And so what we're doing in these sessions now, is trying to give you all tips on how to work on these areas of your relationship so that it does not have to end in divorce, or it does not cause unnecessary conflict in your marriage, or even if it does, for you to know how to deal with it, right? When it comes up, to know what might be the root cause, to be able to discuss it properly. So this session is about that, right? And so if you have questions and so on, you can ask at the end, but I'm giving you an opportunity. If you were on last week and you did not get an opportunity to ask a question, you can do so now. Give you a few seconds to do that. I'm gonna wait too long. Alrighty. If you want to ask a question, you could unmute your mic, right? If not, I'm going to start. I'm going to start from the beginning, like where I started last week, but I'm going to run through that and finish off the, how to fix the problem of sex in your marriage if you are having a problem, right? Now, my husband and I pastor a church. We've been doing that for about 20 years. I believe in, I've submitted my life to God, and I trust God's opinions, I trust God's ways, and I trust God's instructions for my life. And when I follow those instructions, when I follow his ways, when I submit my ways to his, I've seen success in my life, in my relationships, in my life generally. And so, good night, my dear. And so when I share what we share in these forums, a lot of what I share is God's opinion. And so and mine, and information that I gathered, obviously, from counseling people and so on, and from the Bible. But I said all that to say, especially for the new folks who may not know, about the sessions. First things first, I believe, and God believes, it is God's design that sex was really designed for marriage. So the tips that I'm giving you here, you may be in a relationship and not married and you're having sex with the person, and yes, it may help, but I'll tell you straight out, you're not in an ideal situation. If you are in a relationship with someone and you're having sex with them outside of marriage, right? It's not an ideal situation. It's actually not God's design. It was never his plan for us. And we know it causes a lot of problems, right? So with that said, let me start, right? So I am addressing married women, trying to help marriages, and those, listen, singles as well. Yes, singles as well. Single women, please don't think that, well, she trying to help married women. What I do on this call, listen, it is better that you know these things before. Every single person should know every single thing that I discuss in these sessions. you should know them before. So if you're single and you've been a part of these sessions, you are blessed, right? Okay, so let me start. In order to have, we spoke about this last week a bit, in order to have sexual intimacy, which is, I hope, the desire of passionate, sorry, I left out the important word. In order to have passionate sexual intimacy, which should be the desire of every married couple, there must be complete freedom from fear and judgment, right? It is going to be impossible for you to be totally free in the bedroom with your husband if you have a sense of fear when it comes to maybe sex or your body, or issues that you may have, or insecurities. And I shared with you all last week an issue that I had when I just got married, which was not being able to be naked in front of my husband, right? And I know for some, some people hear that and they're like, but that as your husband or whatever. But I was married a virgin, and for me it was a going into unknown territory, and my body, I've never been that transparent and exposed before anybody, so it was a challenge, for a while, right? And so with that, if I have a think about it, right? So I'm newly married, and I have this, not a fear, but just an insecurity, really. And so that is obviously going to prevent me from expressing myself in a lot of different areas when it comes to the bedroom, right? If I have an insecurity, if my thoughts are, what is he gonna think about me? Is he gonna like how I look? I'm just being practical, right? And if you are insecure, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that anything is wrong with your body, and I mean, that was the case with me, but it's how I felt about myself. And that hindered me in the beginning from expressing myself freely, right? So, but after a while, yeah, right? So there must be complete freedom from fear and judgment, right? Sex is the area in which nearly every couple needs to be more honest, needs to show more honesty, and have the most communication, right? The fears and insecurities that are stirred when people begin to venture into sexual intimacy are some of the deepest, right? So the fears that and insecurities that are right. So you may not have had. So this is a switch to my situation, right? You might be married, get married, and you never had any insecurities about your body, right? You never felt insecure in any way about your body. But when sex and in the bedroom is the place that insecurities and fears pop up, when you begin to venture into sexual intimacy, it's some of the deepest fears and insecurities can happen in the bedroom, right? Just by one word, just by one statement, or one maybe look, or simple, listen, it's a fragile area in a marriage. Especially now in the beginning, when it's now it's so much, in my opinion, and God's, right? I'm glad I'm siding with God. To me, it is so much more exciting when the two people come together and they're exploring each other in the marriage for the first time sexually, right? It's more exciting. It's more, and it takes away so much of the past thoughts that you might have, past experiences, things that may have damaged you in past sexual relationships. It is a beautiful thing to come together with someone, and this is the first time for both of you that you are experiencing intimacy like this, and you're exploring each other together. But that has been distorted and destroyed by the world, and sex has become absolutely nothing of importance. It's not sacred, it's not holy, sex is just something people do for pleasure. You don't even have to be connected to the person. You could go to a party, see a man, he looking nice, he have muscles in the corner, he dancing, or you could go carnival, a man wind up on you, or they get, excited in the moment, have sex, and then after that, you don't even remember what he looked like, right? That is what sex has become. And that is far, far from God's intention. for sex, right? It's supposed to be a safe, sacred place for a husband and wife, right? That's what God intended. And it is the better way, right? It definitely is the better way, right? So let me read that again. The fears and insecurities that come up when people begin to venture into sexual intimacy are some of the deepest. Our sexual lives can be the source of great confidence or a place where our egos are shattered. So you could, listen, anyway, we'll get to that. Actually, when we get to communication, you'd see these things coming up, right? It's probably the most threatening place, though, for the male ego when things are not going well. It is a source of shame. And for women, it is sometimes, why is my daughter commenting, boy? Sending me messages. This YouTube thing, Celeste, this YouTube thing. Why is my child looking at it? I ain't too sure about this YouTube thing. Anyway, it is probably the most threatening place for the male ego when things are not going well. And for women, and for men as well, it can be a place of shame and disgrace, right? So, ladies, with that said, right, those of you who are married, and even those of you who are not married, bearing in mind that when it comes to sex and performance for a man, a big listen, there's ego involved there, right? And sometimes things don't really work out, right? If you know what I mean. Sometimes things don't necessarily always work out in the love making as you might want. Sometimes, and I think I mentioned this when we did the 5 top things, right? That a man can be satisfied much faster than a woman. So he could come, bam, 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 boom, bam, ooh, great, right? And the woman could still not be satisfied, right? And so how do you think well, I mean, I'm asking this question, right? You as a woman, if that has been your experience, right? Isn't that something that you should communicate to your husband? I mean, and again, this is a forum, ladies. It's only supposed to be ladies here. You're free to share. So tell me in the comments, okay, and Yala, tell me in the comments, ladies, if that has ever been your experience and if you have been able to communicate that to your husband. I don't know if anybody is so bold to comment in the chat. But it happens because it's really different for men and women, right? Oh gosh, Jennifer, that no, right? I'm glad I'm having this session, right? I am so happy that Jennifer said that because, ladies, it is a common thing. It is a common thing because if I say it, you might say I just saying that. No, it does happen. Minyana says yes, it has been her experience and she communicated it, right? But if you're not married and you don't have any experience with sex and stuff and you watch movies, that's a reality for many marriages, yes. And you watch movies, you would see that many times, you know, the woman pretends that it was satisfying for her, but it wasn't, right? And she'd pretend, she'd literally, you know, and it's in the movies because it's a reality. That many times that happens. But ladies, doing what Miss Jennifer said, yeah, I understand you. I understand. Doing what Miss Jennifer said she does, where she would just pretend it's not the answer. Now, how you communicate, ladies, listen to me. How you communicate is very, very important. How you communicate that, right? Because it does affect your husband's ego. And yeah, I don't know if you all are aware, but the functions and the things that are supposed to happen during sex, you know, the things that are supposed to happen to your anatomy can actually be hindered by how a man feels about. So psychologically, things could not be rising to the occasion because of a psychological issue, because of a way that a man might feel about himself, some experience, or you, because of something you might have said, or even anxiety, for a lot of different reasons. So it's not always, in all cases, an automatic thing, right? Your psyche and your physical, they could be tied in the bedroom, right? And so, ladies, how we communicate is important. But actually, when we get to communication, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, right? So that is something to bear in mind. That, yeah, I mean, I know it's a women's forum, but I still don't want to be, not that the, things that go along with sex is considered crude, but I just, you know what I mean now. Yeah. So we need to be aware of our man's ego when it comes to sex, right? And listen, the men need a session like this, I think, more than women, because I think men are very insensitive in that area, in the bedroom. Many men, it's sometimes just about satisfying themselves, and that's not really experiencing true intimacy and love making. That's just satisfying yourself, right? And so I think sessions like these is definitely needed for men, right? Hear this, ladies. Surprisingly, it is all the events leading up to the bedroom that most determine if it's going to be a safe place, not just the event that takes place in the bedroom. Sex begins outside of the bedroom, right? It's not only something that happens in there. Everything leading up to it is important as well, right? The level of trust in other areas, the way you solve problems, the way you communicate, forms a backdrop of trust that we take into the bedroom, right? So it's not by chance that these two, that sex and communication, is actually tied together tonight, because they kind of go hand in hand, right? And so if there's no trust in certain areas of your marriage, right, with your husband, if there's no trust in let's say, finances, if there's no trust in communication, you always feel that you're not heard, you're never understood, you're always dismissed, right? When you try to say what you have to say, it's never important. You don't feel valued when you try to communicate with your husband, right? It is unlikely that trust will be given in the area of sexual intimacy. So it's not, people feel you just go in the bedroom and, yeah, this is just supposed to work, man, because you, my husband, I'm your wife, and we just supposed to come together and everything's supposed to work out, in the bedroom. But that is not the case. What happens outside those doors are just as important. It's just as important as what is going to happen in the bedroom. And if there are areas that you do not trust, if there are areas in your marriage where you don't trust each other, right? Where there are issues, let's say you have a trust issue with your husband, even in the area of you're not sure who you're talking to, you don't like the type of conversations that he has with women, or not that he cheating on you, but you just have that little kind of trust issue there. And as I said, if you don't feel valued by your husband, that immediately, when you go into the bedroom, that trust and that openness and that just freedom for you to express yourself and for him to explore is not going to be available in bed, right? So, ladies, it's something, these sexual problems that you may be having, it's most of the issues cannot be solved in the bedroom itself. It has to be solved outside. We have to get to the root of why certain things are happening. What is the most common? And I would like to hear from you, ladies. Again, I don't know if you all are willing to be so transparent, because it's a touchy subject. And not only is it a touchy subject, it involves your husband, right? But maybe just generally, what are the common areas of the issues that come up in the bedroom? Like, I know for one, a woman said that it's a common thing that the man is satisfied and the woman isn't, right? What might be something else that comes up as a common issue within a marriage, a couple, having sex? Maybe 2 or 3 common things. I'm asking because I want to explore what could be the root cause of that happening in the bedroom. Because you really can't solve it by just going back into the bedroom and saying, okay, let's try this, let's try that, to solve just how when you go into the bedroom to have sex, everything that happens on the outside affects how the intimacy is in the bedroom. The same way, if you're fixing the issues, it has to be fixed on the outside as well. When I say outside, you know what I mean, right? Men feel sex replaces communication. Thank you, Dina. Yeah, thank you. That is true. That is true. Let me see another issue. Let me see something else. Let me hear. Another common issue. No romance, no dating. Nice. Thank you, Michelle. So trust is your financial communication usually affects intimacy relationship in a whole. I totally have this. Yes, it does. It does. No relationship, no dating. That is true. So there's no longer that for want of a better word, there's no foreplay, there's no lead up. I'm Crystal. Hop on. Okay, gotcha. Being open in general, gotcha. Somebody said they're never in the mood. There's a root reason for that too. There's a reason for that. It's not that you're just never in the mood. No way. It could be that, right? That's just, there's a root, right? And so you have to really explore and see why, because business life sex could become routine, foreplay is minimal and non-existent. Yes. Busyness, yes. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, right? So that's a lot that you all have given so much, right? And I did touch on a lot of what is coming up here in the session I did with the 5 top reasons, right? Where I spoke about just the busyness of life. And I mean, people having sex as a couple more as a duty or more as something that comes up when you feel an urge, right, to have sex. You feel as a man, maybe you come out of the shower and you pass him and you see you, and all of a sudden he in the mood, and there's no you see, men could be aroused like that quickly, right? But that's not the case. So you come out of the bathroom, babe, you have things to do, right? You're now, babe, you're going out or whatever, and he all hot up with himself because he see you and he wants to have sex. But for you, there's no lead up. You, as my friend said, maybe not in the mood, or maybe you don't have time or whatever, but he's insistent. And so it does not end up being intimacy. It does not end up being anything passionate. It ends up being him just satisfying himself, right? And that's not God's intention. That's not how it should be. That's not love making, and it's not ideal, right? And so we want to get away from that kind of sex, right? That's more sex than actually making love and being intimate with your partner, right? If people feel safe sexually, they can give themselves wholly to sexual intimacy, and passion will flow freely if you feel safe sexually, right? To feel safe sexually, there has to be open communication, ladies. You cannot feel safe sexually if there are hidden things that you have in your heart that you've never shared with your husband, and vice versa. If, as some people said, you're not being satisfied and you're pretending, or if sometimes women can do this. There's some women, they have the two sides. There are women who everything that happened, they talk about it. Whatever issue they have, they don't hide. They're telling you everything, right? But there are some, and I'm a little more like that I will keep things internally. I try to deal with it internally first, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. But before I venture to tell you how I feel, I try to work it out on my own. And what happens a lot with me is that time will pass and I kind of deal with it. I deal with it. What my dealing with it is not communicating and saying, okay, this is how I feel. This is how I feel when you do this or when you say this or whatever, and discuss it. It's me coming to a place of saying, I will work it out with me. I will adjust. I will ignore, I will adjust, I will move on. That's me, right? And if I know some people are the opposite, they're sharing their feelings. Some women have no problems in that area. They share it, right? But when it comes to sex, if you listen now, remember, ladies, the goal of sex, if you don't have the right goal, then it could be, somebody said it, hop on, hop off, right? If you don't have the right goal, if for you, it's not a matter of experiencing passion and intimacy and safety and exploring and actually making love with your husband, if that is not your goal, I'm the opposite. I say it in big, gosh, right? If that is not your goal for sex in your marriage, then you will be willing to accept a lot. You'll be willing to accept the hop on, hop off, and you just go on with your life. Okay, I'm your wife. This is my duty. Go ahead and do what you have to do. That's not what you all really want, not so. Anybody want, who wants that? Who would actually say, yeah, I'm cool with that? Then you become more of an object, right? That's not, you're not experiencing anything, you're not experiencing any pleasure, or yes, you might, but still, it's still with fear. It's duty, right? And that's not what sex is supposed to be. And you know what is sad? You know what, the people who have an issue with that the most, that duty thing, actually Christians and men, mostly men, quote a lot, actually use the Bible to sometimes force their wives to have sex with them. They said that your body belongs to me. The Bible says your body belongs to me, and the marriage bed is undefiled, and not to withhold sex from me unless we come to an agreement, and we have to come back together soon, or else Satan will tempt me. Right? Now, all those words I just spoke, right, ladies, they do come from the Bible, right? But if you take the word alone without the spirit, it could end up being law, and it could look like it's not love, right? So if your husband, many Christian women have said this to me over the years, where their husband would say, you have to have sex with me because it's what, your body belongs to me, that kind of thing. That's not love. Those words are true. But if you love your wife, if a man loves his wife, he is supposed to want to know, well, what are you feeling? What are your concerns? Why does this happen? Why don't you like this? What would you like me to not do? What would you like me to do? And vice versa, ladies. You communicate with your husband in that area. It should not be a matter of you're just coming together and I trying to get what I could get and you trying to get. That's not love making, right? Right. So if people feel safe sexually, they can give themselves wholly to sexual intimacy, and passion will flow freely, right? Many of the things that determines your spouse's sense of safety may have little to do with you, right? Listen, ladies. Many of the things that determine your spouse's sense of safety may actually have little to do with you. So using myself as an example again, what this is saying is, from my end, I feel insecure about how I look, right? I feel insecure about my body. And I just got married and something, so I'm not comfortable being, naked in front of my husband as yet. My husband, I never communicated that to him. I never communicated that to him. So what he is seeing is perhaps me not knowing where I'm coming from, thinking that maybe I'm not so much into him, or I may be, well, I guess you might say, well, shy, which might be obvious, right? But not really understanding why, and not necessarily communicating. Although, yes, we did communicate a bit eventually. But that is something I brought with me. That is not something that happened in the marriage. That's something I brought into the marriage with me, right? And something that yes, I considered, of course. I mean, when you're getting married and you're considering your husband going to see you for the first time, you have all these thoughts and you're like, what he going to think, that kind of thing. But that is a strange thing to communicate before, at least for me, it was, right? And so, but that is something I brought into the marriage. Remember, the person that you are marrying or going to marry to, or going to marry is the sum total of his or her life's experiences. So you are marrying someone, ladies, you are marrying someone, you are married to someone who came into the marriage, or marrying someone, or you're dating somebody soon to be married, right? Who has come into the marriage and brought into your life everything, all of their experiences, all of their past sexual experiences, all of their past relationship experiences, their experiences with their mother, their father, everything. They're coming into the marriage with all of those things. And those things don't just disappear when you get married. You say, oh, new life. So everything that happened in the past is gone. No. All of that baggage actually comes into the marriage. All of your experiences, I can't even call it baggage. It's just your life experiences. And we know that your life experiences many times shape how you think, how you interact with people, shapes who you become, shapes your success in life or failure, and you bring those things into your marriage. It's the same thing in the bedroom. You bring your past experiences into your marriage. Let's say, which again, I see this as a disadvantage. Some people see it as an advantage, but having sex before marriage, you have someone who is not your husband. You have somebody to compare your husband to. That was not, ladies, that was never God's intention. That's far from what God wants. And you know, and vice versa, right? Your husband, if he had sex with, let's say, 4 women before he married you, right? He now has 4 people to compare you to. And it's not that he's not going to intentionally, right? Or maybe some do, I don't know, right? He's not going to intentionally have sex with you and say, and tell her one thing, okay, first time it's okay. Jennifer was better than that. Lisa, no, not so much. Karen, yes, I give Karen a 10. I give Lisa a 4. And my wife, right? Any woman here want to know your husband actually comparing you to other sexual experiences that he had? Anybody on this call could say, I cool with that. I cool with that. That's cool. That's no problem. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'd rather not. I'd love to know that I'm the first and you have no point of reference. Yeah, no point. As far as you're concerned, I'm the best, right? I'm the best, and vice versa. But the truth is, the world has become a mess when it comes to sexual things, right? Cool nothing. And Wesleyan, of course, cool nothing. When the world want that. And worse yet, he come and tell you, he looking to get divorced. I've been intentional about not compromising cinnamon, right? He looking to get divorced, but coming and telling me, well, when I had sex with Karen, it was like much better. That is it, I even if he tell me on the honeymoon night, nah, just kidding, lady. But how I getting over that? How you getting past that? I would love that, but you would love what? For your husband to, oh, you mean to get married to somebody who have no point of reference, who think you are the best? Oh, for a moment there, I thought you were saying you would love it if your husband compare you to other women, right? Right. Yeah. Whew, glad that's cleared up. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that there's no point of reference. There's nobody to compare. As far as I'm concerned, there's the best. That's how it's supposed to be. That was what God wanted, guys. God never wanted the mess that we in now. It's supposed to be a man and woman. I feeling like the play. It's feeling like it's supposed to be a man and woman falling in love with each other, coming together, right? Exploring each other, enjoying intimacy together, becoming one together in the bedroom and otherwise, and outside of the bedroom. It was never meant to be the way it has become now, where people have several partners before they settle down. That's not God's way, right, guys? That is not God's way, right? But I got to there to tell you all that people come into the marriage with experiences, right? That they past experiences. That is something that once you are engaged, I'm not advising every couple who's dating to discuss these things. But once you are engaged and you realize that this is going to be my husband, that is something that I think needs to be discussed. I don't know about your ladies. I don't know about you. If you're okay not knowing your partner's sexual history, not me. I want to know who, how many. I want to know. I want to know their names. I want to know who they are too, right? I want to know. I don't think that's something that should be kept a secret necessarily. And this is why premarital counseling is also important, right? Somebody who has had multiple partners is going to be very, very different. Even if the person is a Christian, guys, ladies, don't be naive. You scared to know? No, darling. No, 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 no. I want to know, right? Christians have this naive thinking that from the time you say I do, the past is wiped away. Yes, he had 30 women. He slept with 30 women. Yes, he slept with 50. But now I'm his. Now I'm his. I'm all his. Let me tell you, right? There's a big difference between somebody who has slept with 30 people and somebody who slept with one before marriage, right? Sex is not just, no, not specifics. I don't want to know specifics at all. But I certainly want to know how many people you have been with and who they are. I don't want no woman coming up to me on the street and saying, hey, you didn't know I was with your husband and I in the dark. I didn't know. He missed that one. I good. I don't want no strange message from some psycho woman telling me I sleep with your husband and the first time I seen your name in the past, right? At first I don't even know. No, let me know. I don't want specifics though, right? I don't want specifics. I good, right? But what was I saying before? Well, they help me now. I guess I dropped. Please, what was I saying before I stopped to talk about specifics? Come now. Information is power. No, come, ladies, what was I saying before I went to specifics? If nobody know I done, I end in the call. Oh no, I don't want to. Well, yeah, come now. You said you want to know. No.
Nix, you're saying that there's a big difference between someone who has been with one person.
Thank you, darling. Yes, at least Celeste is listening, right? So there's a big difference between somebody who's been with a man who's been with 30 women and one who's been with one. Because sex is not just something that happens in a bedroom. There's a spiritual aspect to it. When you have sex with somebody, right? Remember, sex was designed for people to come to this place of intimacy and oneness, right? Issues that person has in their life, spiritual issues, can be passed on to you, right? And so somebody who might have had sex with one person, yes, they might have, they haven't got nobody, whatever, they might have a soul tie, yeah, just talking. But somebody who has had sex with 30 people, yes, that person, I think if a couple like that comes to me and my husband for counseling, the counselor will perhaps take a different route. And that is something, not so much my husband, that is something I ask when we're counseling. Have you had sex before this person and how many, with how many people? I sorry, if the person don't know in the before the counseling, they will find out in the counseling. I think that is important. Because if there's a saying, you cast sin in a vacuum, and by that it means when you sin, you think it does. In some sins, you think it don't affect anybody, but that's very unlikely. Most times, you do affect the people around you. You also can't have sex in a vacuum. In other words, there are consequences to having sex with somebody other than your husband. There are things that can be passed on to you and even to your generation. We prayed for somebody already who was having sex with someone who was involved in some kind of similimi religious witchcraft. All it was a religion is witchcraft, right? And the person got a disease, not a sexually transmitted disease. They got a sickness. When we prayed for the person, we encountered this demonic being that said to us that sickness, they got it because they had sex with this person. The person was involved in some serious, deep phobia. so to right, worship of a particular God. I'll try to answer your question at the end, Dean, right? I'm going to take me down a totally different road. So you can't have sex in a vacuum, ladies. And so these are questions that you have to ask your intended, who they had sex with. Not who, because you want to be fast or you want to find them. Not all of that. You want to find out, No, listen, I know people give their lives to God and they change and their past is their past, and that is the truth. Some people don't allow their past to affect them in their future, their present. They're really broken off of those things. And so if you have a level of trust for your fiance before you're married, and the person has a track record of trust and honesty, and you don't feel the need to get into the person's history, that is your choice. But I'm saying, for me, I want to know. I don't because I don't want surprises somewhere down the line. I don't, you know what I mean? That's me, right? Right. I think I said this before. For many couples, sex is an obligation that is done as a duty. And they never experience the intimacy and the love and the passion that God intended. And ladies, yes, it is God who designed sex to be something passionate, for something that you could explore with each other, and something that is going to allow you all to become, every time you have sex with your husband, you are supposed to become more and more one with him. You are supposed to actually get closer and closer together, bonded emotionally and physically more and more every time you all have sex, right? Safe intimacy is one of the keys to creating safe sex. Sex without intimacy is like having sex with a stranger, right? So safe intimacy is one of the keys to creating safe sex. And what do I mean by safe intimacy? Intimacy outside of the bedroom. If you don't have a proper relationship, if you're not living good with your husband, or you're not living good, or you don't communicate, you have issues, you're having problems, but you're living together still, right? Yes, you might love each other, but there's a break of trust. There's no intimacy emotionally. You all don't have a connection anymore, right? But you still have sex. Listen, ladies, no, I don't know any woman. I don't know about you. Sorry, let me not assume. I don't know. I'd say I don't know any woman, right? But to me, that is not what sex is. I rather not have sex. This is just me. I rather not have sex with you if let's say at this stage in our life, there's a break in trust, or we don't have a good relationship at all, we hardly even talk. So there's no intimacy, right? There's no kind of romance, there's no kind of love outside of the bedroom, but you're just going to be, when it comes to that, because this is what couples do, and I have to be satisfied, you have to be satisfied, let's have sex. I know that some people live like that, but I'm just saying that's something that, because you're not in it emotionally, it's just an act that you're doing to satisfy yourself. And again, that is so far from God's plan. And God doesn't want any couple to experience sex in that way, right? It could make you feel almost cheap, it could make you feel almost used, right? Let's say as a woman, you don't want to have sex, you are not feeling to have sex because you are not feeling connected emotionally to your husband in any way. That routine sex, right? You don't feel connected in any way to your husband, or like I have said many times on this call, you and your husband had a fight, you are angry, the issue has not been resolved. It actually probably caused more tension, right? But he just have the urge to have sex, and he wants you to give in because this is what you're supposed to do. That's not how it's meant to be. So for a woman, if they are not emotionally invested, it is different, right? I think men are able to separate the emotion from their their excuse me, ladies, but their penis has no emotion. So it's like they could separate. It's like it doesn't matter how mad they are, they compartmentalize. Doesn't matter what argument we had, don't matter. That always ready. That always ready. That always ready. Yeah. But for women, ladies, correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think I alone in the world, right? If you are not emotionally invested in the moment and you have issues in your mind, you think you already know how to argument. Is it easy for you to just say, okay, yeah, look, let me do it? Talk to me. Let me know. Is it if it's just me who feels like that? No, it's not, right? No, Inyala says, no, it's not just me. It's true. I'm not interested, of course. We are emotional beings, right? Sex is not, no, thank you. So I have sisters who with me here, right? Sex is not just a physical act. You are supposed to be emotionally invested as well, right? It's an act that is supposed to be done out of love. And if so, how could it be love if one party does not want to be then it's forced. Then it's going to be forced, right? It's not easy, but let's be real, it happens all the time. Yeah. That's the truth. That's why it's coming up. It happens all the time. But I'm saying that's not how it should be. But and I'm trying to show the difference between men and women. So ladies, right? Do you communicate this to your husbands? Because that is you can't fix it when all they reach in your bedroom. At a time when it's not maybe anyway, when we get to communication, we'll cover that, right? You have to let your husband know that, listen, I need more than just you coming on top of me and doing what you have to do, right? Women want to feel that emotional connection. They want a little stroke here and there, nice words, a little foreplay, right? But men sometimes are not so much into that, right? And so it could sometimes make you feel, what am I, an object? It almost like you're being used, right? Um, so ladies, you have to decide as a couple what you want out of that experience in the bedroom. Every time we go in there, it's not practical. It isn't practical, and it doesn't always happen that way. But the ideal thing, and that's, to me, we should always strive for the ideal, right? And for what God intended. When you go into the bedroom with your husband to have sex, it is supposed to be an experience of love making. And if that's not happening, and it's happening more often than it should, it's happening that way, you need to let your husband know. Because what is the point in not communicating? What's the point in going through your whole life just, right? So you need to let him know, right? If you want to have intimacy and an emotional connection, you are on the right path. The only people, right, listen to this, right? The only people who experience incredible sexual gratification as God intended are those who are devoted to emotional and physical satisfaction of their partner. So it's not only physical satisfaction that you should be interested in. Excuse me. You are also supposed to satisfy your husband and vice versa emotionally as well. These people are committed to agape love. They value their partner's feelings and are committed to protecting those feelings in every area of life, especially in the most vulnerable areas. And sex is one, right? So every human being wants to feel valued. You want to know that your husband values you. And if you are committed in your marriage, like, what's the point of being married if you're not going to strive um for not perfection? I mean, there's not perfect, but you're supposed to be at least trying to maintain love, maintain that level of intimacy, trust, value in each other. And if as a woman you do not feel valued by your husband, right? Getting into communication, actually we're almost there, right? We actually are there. Yeah. So communication is going to slip right into sex, right? Believe it or not. If you as a woman don't feel valued by your husband, it's going to be difficult for you in the bedroom to just have no inhibitions at all, just to be free, to not have any fear of judgment, or, you know, if you feel your husband doesn't value you, he's not interested in your communication. So these emotional things need to be sorted out before the intimacy could be sorted out. I know there are people who can compartmentalize. They can say, all right, this is how our life is outside the bedroom, but once we get in our bedroom, it's action, right? And we'll get to that, right? And so, ladies, these are some of the common things that happens in the bedroom. Believe it or not, the fix is actually in communication, which we are getting to now, right? So we're still going to be talking about sex a little bit, but we've gone on to communication. Making people feel safe in intimacy starts with communication, right? If your spouse doesn't feel safe talking to you, or he or she will never feel safe in intimacy, right? If I can't even talk to you, if every time I talk to you I get shut down, what I have to say is not important, basically I don't feel valued in the relationship, that's how I'm going to feel in the bedroom, right? There's never going to be, I'm always going to have that at the back of my mind. That feeling goes into the bedroom with me. So I don't know, apparently ladies can separate, but I can't do that. So to me, it would feel like the experience of love of the sex is not love making. Because if you don't value me outside of the bedroom, all of a sudden you're valuing me inside. And what, you know, it will be very difficult for me too. If you're telling me things in the marital bed, right, that you wouldn't tell me outside. In fact, outside you're telling me opposite. But because you want the experience to go good in the bedroom, you're saying things that you think you want me to hear. You understand what I'm saying, ladies? That's not how it is meant to be. And that is always going to have you in a state of holding back, right? Holding back, even if it's emotionally, right? And it's going to spill over into the bedroom as well. So making a person feel safe in intimacy starts with communication. Passionate love flourishes, that whole experience, in openness and honesty. But if there's no communication, there's no openness, there's no honesty, that's another thing, right? If there's no honesty between you and your husband, if there's no proper communication, right? If there's no proper communication, you all can't even have a discussion about anything without arguing. Once it gets to a difference of opinion, it ends up in a row. All of those things affect what happens in the bedroom, right? It's difficult to separate it, right? If you wait until you get into the bedroom, I was actually saying this before, to earn trust, you are too late. So it's like what I'm saying, right? You want to have sex, so when you go in the bedroom. Now, I'm talking a lot about the men because I'm assuming women don't do these things, that men are the ones who won't do these things, but I know there are women like this as well, right? So let me talk to the women. You want to have sex, you want it to be a good experience, but only when you get in the bedroom, you're starting there to try and establish a kind of, because you want things to go good. So you're saying what you think he wants to hear because you know it's going to get him in a certain mood, whatever. But outside of that, outside of the bedroom, you can't say those things, right? So if you wait until you get into the bedroom to earn trust, you're too late. Rather, the bedroom is the place you want to go when you never have a concern or a fear about what is going to happen, right? It's too late if you're getting there and you're trying to now work up yourself to say, okay, let me put these things aside. Let me put these things aside in my mind and let me just enjoy this experience. You need to work on that before, right? Okay, so I said we'll get to this, hear this, right? Communication is a signpost along the road to affection and passion. Okay, people often say that they have a great sex life, couples, right? All the other areas of their lives, might not be the best, but they have a great sex life, right? I have personally never seen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience counseling couples who have issues and stuff, right? I have never seen just having a good sex life with your husband carry a marriage through. Like, I've never seen it like that's all. There's no, like, there are couples who are dating and the only thing that's the relationship toxic, it's toxic. But when they get in the bedroom, it's action, right? They're compatible, they have chemistry. I spoke about this too. Everything going good, right? But other than that, the relationship is a mess, right? They just can't wait to have sex. That's what keeping them together. Let me tell you something. That might work for a while, and even in dating after a while, that don't last, right? Marriage, more so. I've never seen that alone keep a marriage, right? I've never seen it work that way. Right. Okay, but sex, a good sex life, a good relationship in the bedroom can help to sustain the marriage for a while. And it can help, so I'm not saying that it's of no use, right? But it can help, let's say if you have the other things together, right? If you do have other things together, it doesn't work out if that's all you're living together for, right? There's my wife, there's my husband, where we have sex because I have this need, but all you don't even talk, right? But if you have other things going for you, there's still love in your marriage, in other words, right? And there's a good sex life, it does help in the long haul to take your marriage through. So you can't just discredit a good sex life. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying if that's all you have, then I think your marriage is doomed for failure, right? And communication, ladies, is very important to take you to the next level. If you, because sometimes you might feel stuck sexually with your husband. Like, you're thinking that there could be something more. And believe it or not, you might think that the answer to going to the next level is again, you start trying in the bedroom. Yes, maybe, but believe it or not, it could, what happens outside could contribute more to that next level sex life than actually what would happen in the bedroom. Conversations you have before, the kind of intimacy you experience emotionally with your husband before, those things can take you to the next level, right? What we really want is a great relationship, and you want to feel loved, right? You want to feel like you have worth, and you want to feel like you have dignity. You want to feel valued in every area of your life, not just in the bedroom, right? And if that's how you're feeling, ladies, you have to communicate that to your husband. If you are feeling like, I only have worth and value in this marriage in the bedroom, that is no way to live. And that is something that you have to communicate with your husband. If he is not taking you on, you say, listen, we need to have some counseling. You need to talk to somebody, I need to talk to somebody, or we need to talk to somebody. But that is no way for you to live. And ladies, you should never settle, right? There are some times that I know as women you do, but you should never settle, right? As long as you are married, there's hope. As long as there's love. Actually, I shouldn't say as long as you're married, because people are married and there's no love. As long as there's still love in your marriage, there's hope for things to get better. But you have to communicate. You have to say how you feel. You have to be open, right? So we go into tools for good communication, right? So I have a few tools here. Lord, I hope I finish. I should. Even if I spill over a little bit into next week, it will be like a real little bit, right? Number one, ladies, right? Okay, before I go on, real quick, does anyone have any questions based on what I spoke about with where sex is concerned? Because when we get to the end of communication, all the questions are going to be about communication, right? Any questions, any concerns, any feedback, any advice maybe you might want to give to ladies, based on your own experience? Anything, anybody want to share anything?
Somebody asked me a question anonymously, right? Let me just get it. So, because there is such a stigma of sex in the Christian community, how do you keep things passionate and spicy in the bedroom without crossing the line of worldliness and lust?
what is spicy? I'm pausing because
I don't
I
know.
see
When I read this, like I think about how we say like sometimes men want to bring porn into the bedroom, and I don't know if that's what
um
Kristen means, but I don't know.
okay. Again, it might sound like I'm being repetitive, but this is something that you actually have to have a meaningful conversation with your husband about. Are both of you on the same page in terms of feeling that there could be more? Remember, I was talking about next level, right? And yes, I don't know where the person who said that lingerie. I don't know, Patrina. I only have experience with one person, right? But I'm just thinking in my mind, Christian or no Christian, men really, what could be, what is considered not spicy or taboo in the bedroom? If you know what I mean. I mean, unless you're telling me that I need to you need to whip me, handcuff me. I don't know if that is what you consider in spicy. I don't consider that have anything to do with lovemaking or passion or spice. That is things that came from watching pornography, and perhaps living a certain type of lifestyle that is trying to come into a marriage. So I don't know if that is what, excuse me, I don't know if that is what is meant by spicy. Um, but how you get over that, the person who asks that question, you and your husband have to have a meaningful conversation about what your expectations are in the bedroom. Because he might be thinking one way and you thinking another, and you all have never experienced that, right? Toys, right. Yeah, well, yeah, no, some of not this 50% of what is brought into the marital bed has come from a past or even present of pornography and what was picked up by the world. And it's actually nothing that is really going to add. It's actually a spirit of lust coming into the bedroom, right? So that, I mean, I don't know if that person, if you're willing to reach out to me personally, maybe it might be a more personal thing and you could give more details. I'd be more than willing to chat with you, right? What if you and your husband, so let's read that for me.
Okay. What if you and your husband don't have sex nor communicate but still living together, and the husband is not willing to get counseling? He just wants to live his adulterous life. Can a marriage survive under such circumstances?
A marriage should not have to survive under such circumstances. If your husband wants to live an adulterous life, let him go and do so. That is my advice. It is also God's advice. God actually said that one of the reasons that divorce is accepted and okay, and you can move on with your life, and by that I mean in the future perhaps marry someone else, is adultery. And if your husband is intent on living an adulterous life and is refusing help, you need to get out of that marriage, not try to make it work. My personal advice to you is to move on. That's my advice, right? So let's say you're gonna have to read the others for me, right? Like if it's a question, not necessarily a comment based on what that person asked. If there's
Okay,
a question,
let me see. Okay, is something wrong if a woman does not ever make the first move to have sex?
I think so. Yes, I think so. I think there's something up with the person. There's some emotional reason why she's not able to make the first move. Um, yes, I think that there's a deeper issue. Yeah, and something that maybe with counseling and talking to someone, you could probably get to the, yeah. But I think that, yeah, I think it's not only men as want to have sex, women want to have sex too. If you're married and if you have sex with your husband, you make the first move. So yes, if you're married for a while and you're not able to do that, that's a little odd, I think. Yeah, but to get more, to get out of it, there's gonna have to be more discussion. So you can always reach out privately. Any other questions? Are there any questions in the chat that we might have missed, Celeste?
Somebody asked a question further up, and you said if you was to answer, it would take you down a different road.
How to break a soul tie? That was the question. There are easy ways and there are hard ways, right? There are easy ways and there are hard ways to break a soul tie. The easy way, the person who asked the question, to break a soul tie is to cut ties with the person completely. If you think you have a soul tie with someone, right? If you think you have a soul tie with someone, cut communication with them. Block them if you've moved on with your life, right? Especially if you have another partner, or let's say you're married, or you have another boyfriend or whatever, right? Block them on social media. Don't have any communication with them. If they call you for help, listen to me, right? This is the easy way. If they call you for help and they say, nah, you are the only person, I call everybody else and I can't get through, or I need help, I shut down on the highway. It may be the most difficult thing for you to do in your life, but say to that person, no, I can't assist you. But they're not supposed to be able to call you, because if you block their number and think they can't call you, right? So the first step is cutting all ties in terms of interactions with the person on social media, block their number. And that might just be for a while, because you realize I keep going back to this person. I have this tie with this person and I want it broken, right? So you're severing ties with them on social media and contact, block, whatever. So they can't reach you, right? If they're sending message by people, ignore them, right? After a while, you have to give that time though. It doesn't mean it's gonna break in a day or two. After a while, whoever asked the question, you're gonna feel less and less connected to that person. That's a natural, easy way to do it. Do not do favors, just lock the person off, right? Totally. And that's not being not love either. Some people said, how could I do that? It was a good friend. That's not love. What's meant how other people could love them, right? You loved them before they didn't work. Why other people could love them now, right? Lock them off. The other way, which we've had to deal with many times as ministers, is through prayer and perhaps deliverance, right? Took me four years, and y'all said, my gosh, that's long. That's long. It could be shorter. It could be shorter. But, and you know when it's a tie, when it's a soul tie, when there is really no godly reason or ungodly reason why you should be communicating with this person. They no good. They were no good in your life. They hurt you. They abuse you. They harm you. And still, if they call you, if they want help, you still find yourself going and getting back tied up with this person emotionally, right? It's been a year with no communication and I miss them more. Carry on, my darling. Carry on, right? Carry on, okay? Don't feel because you feel that sense of missing the person, that's a sign that you should be with the person, right? And Yala just said it took her 4 years to totally break a tie, and it was the best thing that happened to her. Carry on with the no communication. My next thing that I was going to say, right, which to me should be a last resort, is through prayer. Soul ties can be broken through prayer and deliverance, because sometimes it could be a spiritual tie, especially if you were sexually involved with that person, right? And I mean, you have to be practical and ask yourself the question too, why am I missing this person? What did I get out of that relationship? What is the thing that I think that I need that I could still get from that person, right? And it could be a matter of you actually just having to deal with you and the thing that you think you need that only that person could give you, right? So sometimes you need to do some soul searching. So a question about kids, right? We've totally gone off course where that is concerned. I actually did a whole session on soul ties, guys. you could go back to the YouTube channel and perhaps look for it, because I did an entire session on how to break soul ties, right? It's difficult when you have a child with the person. You still have to communicate. There's no way you can't communicate with your child father. You have to communicate with them, unless they don't want to communicate with you and you raise the child all on your own. But when it comes to that emotional connection, you have to have boundaries. You have to set boundaries, and you have to do that before. You have to say, anytime he says this or he asks to do this, I'm going to say no. You have to know the triggers. You have to know what the things that he's going to say that's going to get you to break down emotionally. Write them down if you have to and say, this is set boundaries, so that when it happens, you're prepared. You don't get catch off that, right? But with a child, sharing a child with someone, yeah, try to break a tie with, is difficult because you have to see them, right? You have to communicate with them. All right, so let's move on quickly to communication. Celeste, is there another question?
Yeah, we did have.
Not before die so much.
Okay, well, someone was saying, asking if, she said, if the lock off is not happening after, as a wife, you express that the friendship is a sore place for you, should you quit that marriage? And then
read that again. Sorry, Celeste, I don't think I got you totally. Read it again.
I think she was talking about maybe the person having a soul tie with somebody else, but she was saying that they haven't locked off the person, and they know, yeah, should you quit that marriage? And somebody else had a question. I'll just read it together. Quick. Shucks, Fritz. 1 second. Okay, if you have no communication in your marriage, you can't see eye to eye, can't have a conversation, no emotional connection, no sex involved, can that be fixed?
Of course. I would ask that person if they still love their husband, and if they feel that amidst all of the issues, if their husband still has love for them, yes, of course that can be fixed. Think back before you were married, when you first fell in love, there was something there. Hopefully there was something real. Now, the unfortunate thing is, a lot of marriages, people get married and the marriage was actually built on something that really wasn't love. Some people get married because, and I spoke about this again over the past few weeks, because of sex. The sex was great, and they found a great sexual partner, and they're now willing to let go, and they have a little chemistry, and they get married. That's not going to sustain your marriage. It's not going to sustain your marriage. Some people get married for security. Some people get married because they're getting old. Some people get married for all kind of reasons, right? Except for love. But if you did get married, if in these early stages of your marriage, and even let's say in your relationship, there was love, and that there are things that you used to do that you both enjoyed, I would say go back. Even God tells us in the Bible that as his children, sometimes we lose that place of first love. And he tells us to go back to the things that, that got you in love with God in the first place. Whether it would be just listening to worship music and talking to God, whatever it was. If you feel you lose your connection, but once there was really love there, your marriage can be saved. Once there was really love there. Some people stay together with no love, but I think that's like a prison. I think that's like a prison, and nobody should live like that. And I'm not saying get divorced either. I'm saying get help. Unless it's a case of adultery and abuse and stuff, it's just, no need to beat up with that marriage. That's just my opinion. You see the lady who asked about her husband being adulterous, and it sounds like he's just continuing. There's no need for any woman to stay in that situation, right? I'm not saying if your husband cheats on you once, that's it, marriage end. But the way she made it sound, it was like he was just continuing and wanted, no, he didn't see any need for help, and he was continuing his lifestyle. God love you, and he don't want that for you, right? right out from that marriage. Okay, so yes, the answer is yes, your marriage can be fixed. Well, provided there's love. Even if there isn't love, it could happen. I believe so, right? Number one, communication, right? Listen to understand. Ladies, we have issues. May start by saying, this is my opinion. You're all gonna probably get vexed with me, perhaps disagree with me also, right? Women think they're the ones that have the upper hand in communication, and I disagree. What women have the upper hand in is talking plenty. You talk more. You may be more. Yes, you communicate more because you are the talker. You're the one that's talking more. But sometimes in the multitude of your many words and talking, right, you are not communicating. All you are doing is blabbering, right? That's not necessarily effective, healthy communication. So women think they have the upper hand, but I believe no. I believe some of you talk your husbands into submission. You talk him into a place where he don't want to talk to you, right? But you are talking. You are not having meaningful conversations, right? So ladies, I think that we get it wrong. We say the men don't talk. They don't like to talk. They don't like to talk to you. Don't get vexed with me. Don't get vexed with me. Do not get vexed with me. Okay? They don't like to talk to you because they know how the conversation is going to go. Understand, ladies? So they don't want to talk to you. They know how it's going to end before it even starts, right? So it's you they don't want to talk to. But bet your bottom dollar, if a little shorty pull up in work, right, and she talking to him and she like him and she admire him, and you know she start talking to him and think he gonna talk about himself, he gonna talk, he talking because his ego being fed, and he will find words and he will talk, right? So ladies, don't assume that you are the better communicator because you talk more. That is not necessarily true, right? So we're starting from there, okay? So listen to understand. Don't judge the matter before the man even finish what he say. Do not judge and think that you know why he is saying what he's saying or why he did what he did. Many women do that. You don't know. And ladies, be honest with me. You don't know. I don't know. You could say what you want. I know. You could say what you want. I know what you mean. I know why you do it. You could say what you want and all you say too, right? And so when you are listening, when he's talking, you are not listening. You are waiting for him to finish. Am I right or am I wrong? You're not listening, you know. You just giving him his time because you're trying to be fair. So he talking and you just waiting. You just waiting for him to say his last word to come out now with all your theory. You did not listen to what the man said, right? You waited for the conversation to end so you could say your piece, right? Many times we communicate to win the argument. If we arguing, you communicate to win the argument and to get a point across and to come out on top, to come out at the end of the argument. Well, I win, right? What's that? What's win? How you win? What, you know what I mean? You win because your husband hush and ignoring you, right? Sometimes your husband is speaking to you, ladies, and it happens the other way as wrong as well, right? When you're talking to them, and the point that he's trying to make goes over your head. You don't even understand what he said, really. So he's communicating, but because you have these 100 million gazillion thoughts in your head and you are not actually listening, right? You are not actually listening. What he says also, you get the wrong idea. In fact, you don't need, if he asks you to repeat, he will realize that you were not even listening to what I said. That's not what I said. And he would be true. How many of y'all have heard your husband say to you, that's not what I said? Tell me, talk to me. I've heard my husband say that quite a few times. He would say, Nix, that's not what I said. And kill me dead, that is what he said. But that is what I already that's what I think he's saying. And kill me dead, he's speaking words and I hear something totally different, right? That is not what Um, yes, Chanel, right? My husband, those words, he might as well record it, right? Might as well record it and say, that's not what I said, right? Because I'm not really listening, right? I'm waiting for him to hush, right? And so, ladies, number one, listen to understand and put your judgments aside. Put your opinions about why he did what he did or said, put them aside and listen to the man. Listen to what he's saying actively. Listen. And we see what plays a part in active listening, right? Ladies, listening is a very big part of communication, perhaps bigger than actually you talking. Okay, so number one, listen to understand. Okay, right. Don't come with your preconceived notions and ideas of what the man is going to say, right? Number two, have a clear intention in the conversation, right? Hear what has happened. Hear what's happened when people, husband and wife, arguing, right? You never actually resolve the issue at hand because you end up talking about all kind of other things that are out of order. So I want to talk to you. Here the next thing, right? It's not always the best time to communicate when things are heated, when it's an argument, right? You could say, listen, honey, no disrespect, but let's not talk about this now. That can't always happen, right? Depending on the situation. But if it can, that's the best thing to do, not when things heated, right? And then come back another time in a different setting when both of you all calm. That's okay. John, can we talk about this situation with your mother-in-law, with your mother now? I want to, so and so happened last week, and I want to talk about this because when you start to argue a point, right? Listen, it's the worst kind of communication. You bring up the point, and he sidetracked, and he will say, "Well, yeah, you talking about my mother, but what about you last week when you do so, so, so?" And then you answer that, and then he come back with something, and at the end of the conversation, your intention was to talk about his mother and what she did or said or whatever, and that probably get mentioned once. What end up happening in the conversation is words start to fly, accusations start to fly. He bring up things from 10 years ago. All you wanted to do was talk to him about what his mother did, and all you're going back 10 years when he tell you the dressing fit in your right. When you understand? So you have to be intentional in the conversation. If you have something that is bothering you that you need to talk about, tell him I want to talk about this. But if you do it in the midst of arguments, it will not be resolved. It will not be meaningful. He ain't gonna hear you. It ain't gonna have no active listening going on. So be intentional. Don't just argue and start arguing about talking, saying this, communicating, and start bringing up all kind of thing, right? That was number two. Okay, but number three kind of is part of number two. Don't only have argumentative communication. Set a time to talk in a different atmosphere. Ladies, I know this is hard for you all. Difficult because you most women wear their emotions right here, right? And you can't hide it. And if something bothering you, you can't hide it. If something bothering you, you must blurt it out now, right? Sometimes you feel so strongly about something and you're so emotional that in that moment it's not the time to deal with it, right? Because you're very emotional about it and you know you're going to break down. And so sometimes the best form of communication in a moment is none at all, right? But number three is don't only have these sort of argumentative communication times. Set a time to talk, and let's say, okay, let's say I want to talk to him about the late hours he keeping or whatever, or why he not showing you more attention or something like that, right? Don't do it when you're feeling hurt. When he come home late and he don't give you an explanation or you're feeling hurt, right? I know it will be itching you. It's gonna itch you. It's gonna be hard to not say something. But do it when you're having a good time together, perhaps having dinner or you're driving in the car and you're laughing about something, you know. Say, honey, I want to talk to you about something. Can I say something that's really bothered me that you do, and bring it up in those moments. It's nice perhaps to do it in public too. By public I mean, let's say you're having dinner or you're somewhere sitting down in the open and all you can't shout too much. right? Because, you know, you like to put on the show outside. You can't shout too much. So you bring it up then and you try to have a meaningful conversation. When things are light and the atmosphere is different and it's not tense, right? It don't have to be an argument. If the emotions running high, don't have the conversation at that time, right? Number 4, have empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of the other person, right? Validate their feelings. Don't tell them how they should feel. Listen to them and empathize with them. Try to understand, try to walk in their shoes. Sometimes we try to tell them how they should feel and or how they shouldn't feel. What you getting on so for that for? What you getting on so for? That's not no big thing. On to you. That little shipper thing, are you emotional? Ladies, we gotta do better than that. Better than that. Ladies, watch me. Watch me in my 4 eyes. We have to do better than that. You can't tell the man that shouldn't hurt him, right? If he tell you that exactly, you're not no woman in taking that is fire. So you can't belittle the man's feelings if he's telling you how he feel about something. Empathize with the man. Try to walk in his shoes. If you value someone, that should be easy to do. And hopefully you value your husband, right? If you value someone and you love them and they tell you, when you do X, Y, Z, it makes me feel this way. Even if for you thinking, well, that you do me that, I'm kind of like that, right? I'm being a little transparent. I might say, well, I think instead of me empathizing with you, I thinking about how I would deal with that situation. And to me, I would say, but I ain't gonna bother me. So why it should bother you? That's dumb. I'm calling myself slightly emotionally stunted for thinking that way. That because I'm not going to take it that way, you shouldn't take it that way. That's horrible. And to communicate that is also horrible, ladies. To tell your husband that shouldn't bother you. Well, what's you? You emotional or right, ladies? We gotta do better than that. Okay? Empathize with your husband. And don't try to tell them how they should feel. Okay? While you're speaking to your husband, right? Or in fact, this communication will work for anybody here. It doesn't have to be a husband, right? Echo what they're saying so that they will know that you are listening. But don't just repeat it, right? Make sure that, and this helps too, for them to know that you are understanding what they're saying and you're not misunderstanding them, or that you're not on one page and he on the next page. So while he's talking to you, when he finishes, okay, so you said, so he tell you his whole issue, right? So you say to him, okay, so you mean you don't like it when I do this, and you find that I do this, and you find that I do that, and you think this is how you feel. And when you say, repeat exactly what he said, and you get it, he will be like, yes, you get it. That's exactly what I'm saying. If you repeat it now, and you was all off course, so what you're trying to say, you're this, you're that, and he'd be like, no, you wasn't listening. That's not what I said. But when you echo, when you repeat at the end after he talked to you, right? When you repeat, it gives him an idea for you too of if the person really getting where you're coming from, or if they're actually listening to you, right? So that's a good thing to do. Don't just listen. Don't let them talk for an hour without, coming in. Stop them and say, so you're trying to say so, right? Don't be self-centered when you're communicating. If you value your spouse, you're going to allow them to share their interests, right? Ladies, don't be selfish. You may not like football. You may not understand football. You may not like basketball. You may not like all the things. You may not like anything to do with cryptocurrency. That was just by the way. But that doesn't, if you value the person, if you value your husband and you love your husband, if he's having conversations with you about the things that he's interested in and you love him, then you take interest too, or at least listen to him, but not just listen as a duty. You'd want to understand what about this that you love, or try to share a moment with him, in the communication. Listen and don't let it always be about you wanting to share, because women, we like to talk, we love to talk, You all love to talk, right? And so you want to share about your day, and you want to tell them, and you're going on and on and on about yourself and your worries and your troubles and the children and the house and the mortgage and the food and the stove, and the man just have to sit down there and listen. And when it's his time to talk now, you talk so much that you're busy, you have to cut him short because you have to go and finish cook. If you value anybody, any type of relationship, you would allow the person to share their interests, share about themselves, let them talk about themselves. It can't be a one-way thing where one person only talk about themselves all the time. And as you start to talk about yourself and your interests, there's no interest, right? That's going to make you feel not valued and not loved, right? So ladies, you can't do your husband up. You have to show interest in the things he's interested in, right? Number 7, human beings love to feel valued and they love to be heard. Okay, right? So let them talk about themselves. Again, I keep going into the other one before. Let them talk about themselves. That is one of the ways that intimacy and trust is also built. When somebody feels that you are interested in them, you sit down and you actually interested. Like, that's how people fall in love. That's how you can fall in love via WhatsApp. Somebody just chatting and sharing themselves, and you actually showing genuine interest in this person, who they are, their personality. You're asking questions. Nothing makes a human being feel more valued where somebody is telling you, so who is talk to me, who is Krista Martin? What does she like? What are your dislikes? What is your favorite food? And the person sitting and actually allowing you to share your life. And you interested, it's like you're all engrossed in the person and you're asking questions, serious, and you did this and you that. Watch me. If you get a man, ladies, correct me if I'm wrong. If you get a man, your husband is like that, you get through. Where you could just sit down and talk about you for a while. And it's not, he doesn't seem bored. He's asking questions. That's actually how people fall in love. But sometimes when you get married, that stops. But you don't stop being an individual. You don't stop having feelings and thoughts and things you want to share, or even things in your past. So it's good to allow your spouse to share. Somebody said they're gonna marry him tomorrow. Yeah, imagine you talking to a man and he like this, and he's all up in your conversation, and he's genuinely interested in your day, interested in details. That they have men like that, but yeah, they find one you get through, right? Men who like details, most of them not into it, right? To the details that we as women might want to get into. But funny enough, those are the things in your relationship before you're married that got you all to fall in love, right? So don't be self-centered, ladies. It's not all about you, and learn to value the person. Don't be disrespectful. Ladies, let me tell you something. If you are disrespectful to your husband in your conversations, nothing will lock him off faster than continuing that conversation. Well, I know for my husband. From the time we could be talking, from the time I started to get disrespectful, he done. Conversation has ended. Nothing will stop communication faster than that for a man. Men can't deal with disrespect. And vice versa. He should not be disrespectful to you either, right? But I'm talking to ladies. So don't be disrespectful when you're communicating. It don't matter how mad you are. Don't be disrespectful, right? Take accountability when you are wrong, ladies. Admit it. If you never admit when you are wrong, your husband will stop communicating. He will stop telling you anything that bothers him. He will not have any meaningful conversations with you, because in his mind, he will say, this is not going to get me anywhere, because she's never going to see her part in it. She's never going to admit that maybe, perhaps, yes, she was wrong. And so his thing will be, I'm just not even going to bother. And for you too, if your husband is somebody who would never admit to being wrong, never say sorry, never take accountability, after a while, you just stop sharing. You just internalize. You just stop sharing. You're like, what's the use? He's not going to see my point. He's never going to admit that he did something wrong. So what's the point? So you, though, have to take personal responsibility, admit when you are wrong. As difficult as it may be, that is something that you should do, right? All right, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop there. Those were just a few tips to help you ladies. And I know we could be chatterboxes at times, but that's not the way to communicate really, right? In your much talking, right? So get that out of your mind. That is about talking plenty. Give him a chance to share too. If he wants to, that is, right? And remember, I said sometimes they stop being open and stop communicating because of how the communication in the past normally goes. And so they say, what's the point? Because I know how this is going to end, right? And so you have to show and prove to them that I'm going to do better when it comes to communication, right? And ladies, don't say, well, men just do that too, but they have no men on the school. I'm talking to ladies. So you have to take responsibility, right? So any questions? Or anybody wants to share anything? Anything from your life, anything that you learned through your marriage? Perhaps you improved your communication in your marriage, or you have a concern, you want to add anything. This is your time. You could unmute your mic and go ahead and ask questions. It could also be, I know we asked questions about sex already, but if you didn't get to ask one, you can go ahead, but we're dealing with communication. Talk to me, ladies. And you know what is very important to ladies? I mentioned this earlier, not bringing your past experiences where communication is concerned into your new relationship. You may have had a boyfriend in the past, or all the relationships in the past, the guy didn't communicate properly. And so you're going to your next relationship actually with a preconceived notion of this is how it's going to be. Men don't communicate. That's actually not true. As I said, it's just they may communicate differently, and women talk them into, you know, to the point where they say, yeah, they love attention. But men want to talk to ladies. Trust me. I know my husband is unique. He has no problem communicating. None. And you want communication problem in our marriage, right? Celeste, you were going to say something?
I was gonna read out a question. It had a few questions, well, so
Yeah.
okay, somebody said, what about if your husband is very nonchalant and it's mostly me doing all the talking? It's like nothing bothers him.
Well, maybe it's because it's only you doing all the talking. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know the exact situation. What I would ask you, the person who asked that question, was it like that before you got married? That would be an interested to find out. If it was like that before, if he was always that way. If he was always that way, then that's your husband. That's you married, that's your husband. I'm not saying he can't change, but you know, so but I'll be interested to know if he was always that way, even when you are reporting.
Okay, somebody says, my husband and I were having a convo, and he said to me when I ask for help, I come across commanding, and he dislikes me telling him to do something. Oh no, this was a comment, not a question. Okay, I thought it was a question.
It would sound like a good comment, though, read it.
She was saying she changed her approach, and she says very sweet. She says, babe, can you help me take out the garbage? And yeah, I think she's seeing some results.
Yeah. But ladies, we can come across like mommies rather than soulmates. We can come across like mommies asking our sons to do chores first. Nothing would turn a man off faster than that. Like the nagging and the talking down to him when you want something, or changing your tone. Watch me. If you want him to not do it, go ahead and change your tone and get to bossy. Well, my husband, if I want him to not do something, let me ask him in a bossy way now. He would just watch me like, if I, so I know what time it is, right? I know what time it is. Nah, that's no second mother. That you're not no mother to your husband. Sally.
Sophie says, how do you deal with someone who doesn't take accountability for anything and always finds a way to put the blame on you?
Well, we did a nice session about narcissists. That's their way. No matter what it is, they can be cheated on you, but it's your fault. It's your fault. You got them to that point, and it's like, they're not even taking personal responsibility. If you're married to the person, you might need some extra help. In terms of communicating with a person like that, tell them how you feel. Tell them, I hear you. I know what you're saying. I know you're saying it's my fault, but this is how I feel. If that person is continually ignoring you emotionally, if you are not married to that person, don't make the person your husband, right? If you're not married to that person, don't marry them. That's how your marriage is going to be, right? That's a red flag, as far as I'm concerned, right? If everything always turns around to your fault, right? And nothing could push somebody more into submission more than that. Eventually, if you're married to somebody like that, you're just not going to bother to say anything. It's like, what's the point? It's going to turn around on me anyway. So what's the point, right? And that could actually end a marriage. So you might need some help. You both, he would need some help. He would need, but then men like that, they don't want nobody to talk to them either, because they're not seeing themselves as the wrong person. They're not seeing themselves as needing help. As far as they're concerned, they are right. Sounds very much like a narcissist. It might help as well to go through that session. But I mean, you could reach out to me personally and we could talk, right? An appropriate time limit to talk. Not sure if that question meant an appropriate. Expound on your question, because you just asked question. Or appropriate time limit.